Welcome to episode 9 of Lachie Does footy. We're going to be reviewing round 8, taking a look at the tipping for ladder after round 8 and predicting round 9. Showdown 55 on Thursday night at Adelaide Oval. What a win by the Crows. 30 points against Port Adelaide. Jake Saligo played well in the midfield for the Crows and won the showdown medal. Darcy Fogarty started the game off with kicking the first 2 goals. Isaac Rankin finished up with 3 goals. Tex Walker with 2 goals. As for Port Adelaide, bad kicking let them down with 5 goals, 18. Connor Rosie, I don't know why they allowed him to play throughout the shutdown game when he was out with a hamstring last week. And as for the medical department, oh man, Dr. Nick from The Simpsons is in charge of the medical department. What a game between Carlton and Collingwood. Magpies got up by 6 points. Harry Mackay kicked 4 goals up forward for Carlton. Matty Owens with 3 goals. DeConning and Curnow 2 each. As for Collingwood, Nick Dacos kicked 2 goals that game, including the winner. It was a team effort for Collingwood. Paddy Lipinski looked good again across the middle. Scott Pendlebury still showing no signs of age. As for Carlton, well, they still need to beat the big teams if they want to make an impact come finals time. Sydney versus GWS, battle at the bridge. Swans got up by 29 points. Brodie Grundy won the Brett Kirk medal with a game of 35 hitouts, 11 tackles, 19 touches. Well, it sounds like he's playing like the Brodie Grundy of 2018 again. James Peatling played a pretty good game for GWS, 115 points on fantasy. Will Hayward with 4 goals. It was more of a team effort for Sydney. As for GWS, they've had some injury concerns throughout the game. Tom Green had the 3 touches and then went off early. And I reckon GWS still look like a great team. St Kilda versus North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. North Melbourne got the lead pretty early, but Saints prevailed by 38 points. Jack Sinclair tore it up in the middle with 33 touches and 7 tackles. Tristan Sherry looked good in the ruck with 40 hitouts. Why didn't the Saints get him a few years ago? Rowan Marshall had 20 hitouts in the ruck for St Kilda. The 2021 draft class duo of Wangani Malira and Windhager looked good. So too did Jack Hayes in his first game back in like 2 years, kicking 2 goals. Darcy Wilson 3 goals for the Saints. He looked class on the wing once again. And Cam Zohar kicked 3 for North Melbourne. Melbourne versus Geelong at the MCG. Well, the streak is over for Geelong. 8-point losers to Melbourne. Max Holmes played great in the midfield. 31 touches. First time a Geelong player has got 30 touches in a game all season. Ollie Henry looked dangerous up forward with 3 goals for the Cats. So did Stengel. Bailey Fritsch kicked 3 for Melbourne. What went wrong with Jeremy Cameron? 3 behinds. He should be able to bounce back against Port Adelaide. Caleb Windsor got the Rising Star nomination, although I predicted him to be in the Rising Star race back in the first episode. As for Tom Hawkins, well, he's kicked 1 behind and he's had a fantasy score of 41. Well, looks like retirement is getting closer to him. There were 2 players from last week who this episode said I should be able to step up. Clayton Oliver did just that with 31 touches, back to his best finally. As for Tom Hawkins, he hasn't even kicked the goal since round 3. West Coast versus Essendon at Optus Stadium. Essendon got up by 6 points. It looked like West Coast were going to win that game at one stage. Kyle Langford 3 goals, 3 up forward. Zach Merritt kicked 3 goals for the midfield. He could have had 5, but he kicked the point and he passed it off in the last quarter. As for Darcy Parish, back to his 2021 best. Nick Martin had another great game across half back. Jake Waterman and Jack Williams kicked 3 goals each for the Eagles. Jack Darlings kicked the 2 goals. It looked like he might have been back to his 2020 best. As for Elliot Yeo, he's had some injury concerns. And it looks like another quiet game from Harley Reid. Richmond versus Fremantle at the MCG. Freo got up by 54 points. Josh Treacy with 4 goals up full forward. It looks like he might be the new Matthew Pavlich. Jai Amos, 2 goals, 1. Sean Darcy and Luke Jackson were both pretty quiet in the ruck. Luke Ryan, wow, 13-1 kicks across half back and 39 possessions with a fantasy score of 161. Hayden Young kicked 2 goals across the midfield. Caleb Sarong, 38 touches throughout the midfield. As for Richmond, season done. Too many injury concerns. Bulldogs versus Hawthorn at Marvel Stadium. What a win by the Hawks. 7 points. And I am very sorry to the Hawthorn Football Club for doubting you in last week's episode and picking the Dogs to win by 80 points. Connor McDonald kicked 3 goals for the Hawks. Jack Gunston kicked 2 goals for. It could have been 6. Jarman MP played a great game across half-back for the Hawks. Lloyd Meek, 45 hitouts in the ruck. Limmer's been concussed again for the Bulldogs. As for Dylan Moore, he kicked a goal that game. Jack Gentleman played very good on his 50th game. Kausha Deer, 2 goals on debut. Looks like he might be the next best player for Ford at Hawthorn. As for the Bulldogs, well, if you lose to Richmond next week, you're out the door, Luke Beveridge. Brisbane versus Gold Coast at Pagama, the Q clash. Brisbane got up by 34 points, kicking 10 goals, 19. Joe Danaher kicked 2-2 up forward. Dane Zorko had the highest fantasy score of the year so far, 184. 40 disposals and 16 marks. Out of the 40 disposals, 35 of them were kicks. It was a quiet game for the Gold Coast. Only Ben King managed to shot with 3 goals. Josh Dunkley and Lachie Does both look good in the midfield for Brisbane. And they've also picked up some injury concerns. They've had Lincoln McCarthy out with an ACL. Also Darcy Gardner out with an ACL. And they've also got Noah Answorth being our new sub. Logan Morris kicked 1 goal free on debut. If he wasn't for that Macca's run, he would have got 3 goals, 1. As for Bruce Revel, he looked good on debut at the age of 23. Now, onto the tipping. Let's see how I did so far. Crows versus Port. Got the Crows by 30 points. They got it done. Collingwood by 6 points. Over Carlton even, I'll pick the Blues. I tipped the Giants by 1 point, but the Swans got it done by 29. I tipped the Saints by 61. They still got it done. It was 38 points. I tipped Geelong by 7. Melbourne did it by 8. I tipped the Bombers by 27. They got it done by 6. I tipped the Dockers to win it. They won it by 54. I tipped the Bulldogs last week by 80 points. And they lost by 7. I tipped Gold Coast to win the Q Derby against Brisbane. They lost by 34 points. Total score for the week was 4 out of 9. And for the season so far, it's 38 out of 72. We got the ladder to do right now, and there's a new leader on the top, and that's the Sydney Swans. 7-1, they are the team to beat this season. Second, we got the Cats, also 7-1. Well, their undefeated streak is over, and they've hit a little speed bump. They should be able to get themselves back on the road against Port Adelaide. Third, we got GWS. They're still looking good at 6-2, but they've had some injury concerns throughout the week. Fourth spot, we got Melbourne. They've got their confidence back after beating the Cats. There should be able to be a good season ahead for Melbourne. Fifth on the ladder, we got Essendon. I'm still not convinced at the moment. Their percentage is 95.2, although they've been scraping wins this season. Sixth, it's Fremantle, 5-3. Their season's getting back on track. Let's see how they can do against the formed side of the competition in Perth tomorrow night on Friday night. Seventh, it's Port Adelaide. They are 5-3. Their season's going downhill fast, and it's only going to get worse. They're going to the Cattery to meet Geelong. If they can't get anything right, well, might be goodbye finals for Port Adelaide and possibly goodbye Ken Hinkley. Eighth, we got Carlton. They're 5-3. They're just hanging in there right now. They need to beat Melbourne and Sydney in the 2 weeks if they want to stay in the 8. Ninth, we got Collingwood. Well, the Magpies are coming back. They have not lost a game since round 2. Gold Coast are currently 10th. Well, they're 4-4. The Dema Hardwick plan might have to wait a little bit longer. 11th, we got the Western Bulldogs, 3-5. Well, if they don't beat Richmond next week, well, we might have to say goodbye to their season and goodbye to Luke Beveridge's coaching career. 12th is the Adelaide Crows. They're 3-5 themselves. They're starting to look good this season after 3 wins in the last 4 games. 13th, we got Brisbane Lions. They're getting back on track, but they got a long way to go now. 14th, we got St Kilda. They're 3 and 5. Well, they're just going to stay around that range this season. 15th, we got the West Coast Eagles. They're 2 and 6. They are looking competitive right now. 16th, we got Hawthorn. They're also 2 and 6. Hawthorn got their second win of the year. 17th and 18th are both Richmond and North Melbourne. And that's nothing much to say. Carlton versus Melbourne at the MCG to start our round 9 predictions. Carlton, they are looking a bit average at the moment since round 4. They've lost 3 games so far this season, with 3 of them being in the last 4. As for Melbourne, they got their confidence back after beating Geelong. They should be able to keep the form going, and I've got the D's by 20 points. Best players for Carlton going with Paddy Cripps and Nick Newman. Melbourne going with Bailey Fritsch up forward and Max Gawn in the ruck. Carlton, they need to get Jacob Wiedering's form back. He's been average since gather round. Geelong versus Port Adelaide at the Cattery. We got the Cats by 35 points. Best players for Geelong going with Max Hobbs in the midfield, Zach Tui down back, and Jeremy Cameron up forward for a bounce-back game. Port Adelaide going with Zach Butters, and that's about it. As for Geelong, they looked very good at the start of the season, but they've had a bit of speed bump against Melbourne. They should be back on track against the Power. As for Port, if only they hired the right medical staff and looked after their well-being, Connor Rosie will not be playing last week and would be playing this week. And as for Alir, he's out again with a concussion. Radaglia, he wants to prove himself against his old team. Fremantle versus Sydney at Optus Stadium in Perth. Fremantle, they've been hitting some good form, but at the moment they've got some injury concerns with Sean Darcy. As for the Swans, they are the best team in the comp right now. Too many gun players in their side, playing well as a team. That's why I got the Swans winning by 13 points. Best players for Fremantle going with Hayden Young in the midfield, Luke Ryan across halfback again, and Caleb Sarong in the midfield. For the Swannies, I've got Brody Grundy in the ruck, Isaac Heaney in the midfield, along with Errol Gordon. Well, hopefully this is a week Luke Parker finally comes back in the team. Hawthorn versus St Kilda in Tassie. This is Hawthorn's first game of the season at Tassie. As for St Kilda, they've got a win last week against North Melbourne, but not convincingly. Hawthorn are starting to get me convinced again after they beat the Western Bulldogs. I got the Hawks winning in an upset by 16 points. Best players for Hawthorn got Connor McDonald and forward with Jack Ginnivan. Same with John Newcomb in the midfield and James Sicily across the back line if he's playing. St Kilda got Darcy Wilson having another good game. The Saints, they've barely even visited Tasmania after they left as the second tenant in 2006. Essendon versus GWS at Marvel Stadium. Should be a good game of footy, but it could be a reality check coming up for Essendon. We got the Giants by 8 points. Best players for the Giants going with Josh Kelly in the midfield, Toby Green up forward if he's back from suspension, and Lachie Whitfield across half-back. Essendon got Zach Merritt and Darcy Parish across the midfield and Nick Martin across half-back. It should be a tough test for Essendon, although they've been scraping wins in the last few weeks. Just Richmond versus Western Bulldogs at the MCG. Well, this could potentially be the last chance for Luke Beveridge's coaching career. They need to win this game against Richmond to save his job. As for Richmond, they've been looking poor in the first 8 rounds. That's why I got the Bulldogs by 34 points. Best players for the Bulldogs got Marcus Bontempelli, Bailey Dale, and Jamara Ugle-Hagan across halfback, midfield, and forward. Richmond, I'm going with Liam Baker, and that's about it. Lucky for Luke Beveridge's coaching career, they've got the Tigers. Gold Coast versus North Melbourne at TIO Stadium in Darwin. Gold Coast have got a pretty good track record in Darwin since the end of the COVID pandemic, winning 4 of the last 4. North Melbourne, however, they don't have a track record in Darwin. They've lost there 2 years ago. That's why we got the Gold Coast by 60 points. Best players for the Gold Coast, we got the 2019 draft class trio of Matt Rowell, Sam Flanders, and Noah Anderson. and also took Miller. For North Melbourne, they are playing for draft picks right now. Collingwood versus West Coast at Marvel Stadium. Should be a good game for Collingwood, but don't write off West Coast because the Eagles can play very good against Collingwood in Melbourne, especially at Marvel 2 years ago and the Grand Final 2018. That's why I got the Magpies by 18 points. Best players for Collingwood going with Nick Dacos across halfback and wing and Darcy Moore at centre halfback. West Coast, we've got Jake Waterman at full forward and Tim Kelly in the midfield. Adelaide versus Brisbane at Adelaide Oval. It's the last game of Mother's Day round. Happy Mother's Day to all the mums out there cheering on all 18 AFL clubs. We got the Crows versus Brisbane at Adelaide Oval. Got the Crows by 20 points. We'll remember they played very good on Mother's Day last year against the Saints. As for Brisbane, well, they have not had a good track record at Adelaide Oval in the last few games. Best ground, it should be home ground advantage for the Crows. Best players, we've got Isaac Rankin up forward, Ben Keys in the midfield against his old team, and Jordan Dawson in the midfield. For Brisbane, we got Dane Zorko in the midfield, Lachie Neale, and playing his second game, Bruce Revel. It's an important game for both teams if they want to play finals. Thank you for watching episode 9 of Lachie Does Footy. We hope you have a good time. Next week we've got episode 10. We'll be looking back at the results of round 9 and the first week of Indigenous round.